You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. So I have one this week for you that I know will hit a nerve somewhere inside every single one of you. It's about ageism. A few weeks ago, Velocio ambassador Joan Swain posted a series of photos of herself, unvarnished, unretouched, honest, raw photos of her 65-year-old self. And she included a long, moving caption that included these words. Turning 65 has been an age that has been a challenge for me to admit. Not because I'm afraid to age, and not because I'm afraid of what age has in for me. It's hard because I've allowed myself to be impacted by the ageism which exists in my world, which I have confronted starting around the age of 55. So here I sit, having felt the undertones of ageism for almost 10 years now, and realizing just recently how much this is impacting my ability to relish my time in life rather than hiding it. She goes on to say, this photo shoot is about a celebration of aging and a solid nudge to brands across all industries, including cycling, that not only do we exist, but we are not so inspired by the constant, flagrant flogging of youthful beauty. As much as I appreciate it and recognize its value for a certain portion of the market, I am tired of not being recognized for the contribution we as a group make. We are athletic. We are beautiful. We are intelligent. We live full lives. And we wear your clothes, your shoes, your accessories, and ride your bikes. I challenge all to make this as attractive and marketable as it actually is. And with that, I knew I had to have her on the show because I firmly believe that any stigma and or shame that menopause still carries is rooted in ageism and our fear of aging as women. And this is not an easy conversation, but I think it's a vital one. Joan is on a mission to change the narrative around aging and to improve our representation. And I, for one, am here for it and am happy to join her. And I hope you all enjoy this one as much as I did. I will put links in the show notes to all of her work to make it easy to find. All right, before we get to it, as always, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Feisty Menopause. Sign up for that free weekly menopause blog I put out each week at feistymenopause.com. You can learn more about our Level Up membership, where we sit down with experts 3 or 4 times a month and discuss all issues from sleep to hormones to nutrition. That's at feistymenopause.com too. And remember, you can send me voicemail questions at our SpeakPipe webpage, and there's a link to that in the show notes as well. Finally, quick thanks to Amino Co. for their continued support of the show. I'm a huge fan of their Perform Essential Amino Acid product, and I am 100% sure it helped me through all of my Ironman 70.3 training. So thanks, Amino Co., for your continued support. Okay, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right. Well, good morning, Joan. It is
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Elaine.
We chatted briefly yesterday, and then I was like, let's do a show because there's so much to talk about on this topic. And you know, before we like really get into it, like I'd love you to tell me a little more of your history here and how you got into cycling.
Oh, okay. Well, I've always been a cyclist in some capacity. I think in my younger years, it was more about commuting and doing a little bit of touring.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably, it sounds funny saying this for European people, but from a North American perspective, I mean, I was riding my bike to work when I was in the early 80s. right? I
Wow.
didn't have a car. I never got a car till I was 30.
It
So I
makes you an
always,
anomaly.
yeah, it was then. I mean, it was the point where people would always say, "Oh, I saw you riding your bike." And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody would say that now, but then it was
Right.
kind of an anomaly. So I'd say that that was probably, the first time that I really got into cycling. But I was never really into road riding until I turned 50.
Mm.
I got my first road bike when I turned 50. I kind of took a break from cycling, in terms of where it was, anywhere in my life. And then I ended up getting divorced when I was 50. And I felt like I needed something different in my life. I needed something that introduced a social component that would help me branch out into a different community. And so I was lucky enough at the time to be living in Whistler. I live in Girona now in
Hmm.
Spain, but I am actually here in Whistler right now. You can see all the beautiful trees in the background.
Yeah.
And I was really blessed to join a group that was called Tag Cycling that was run by a couple of ex Olympians
Oh, cool.
and true coaches. They were amazing. And they not only bred competency in cycling and learning to ride properly, but they did just an amazing job of community building. And so that's kind of how I got started. And within a year, I was doing my first Fondo and all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, so I've always been very involved with women's groups in cycling. That tends to be the area I go, I think, because in the beginning, I felt quite vulnerable in groups, and I just felt
Mm.
like I had better community support with women in general. And yeah, so then it kind of extrapolated when I moved to Girona. I didn't move to Girona for the cycling, as most people probably know. Girona is a cycling,
Many
uh,
do.
yes, center. And I went there because, for a lot of variety of different reasons, and cycling was going to be part of that, but it wasn't meant at the time to be such a large component that it ended up being. Um, and so getting into Girona just completely changed my cycling community, um, in terms of feeling welcomed, not just in women's groups, but in
Mm.
groups in general.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And then, so now I basically road ride, and I took up gravel about a
Yep.
year and a half ago. Yeah.
Welcome.
And I would, yeah. So that's it. I'd say it probably makes up about 25% of my life now, in terms of the things that I do are centered around whether it's riding a bike, engaging with people that I ride bikes with, or going to events that I feel are conducive to, to my spirit when it comes to riding.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because you sort of came to my attention with the post that I have referenced in the intro of this show, that you did with Velocio.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that, I'll read like just your first paragraph. It says, turning 65 has been an age that has been a challenge for me to admit. Not because I'm afraid of age, and not because I'm afraid of what age has in for me. It's hard because I have allowed myself to be impacted by the ageism which exists in my world, which I have confronted starting around the age of 55. And there's a lot to unpack there, but I'd like to,
Yeah.
in your words, like, what were you confronting at that time? What were you feeling?
Oh, well, I mean, it kind of started in my 40s, where I was starting to get little hints of just a shift in terms of how the general community would engage in conversation. And a lot of it had to do with, um, how can I say this? Um,
Is it your active community, or talking about the cycling
no,
community?
general. No, I think we're
Okay.
talking general community. Yeah. Yeah. Um, just things, this sounds a bit odd. And I was thinking about this morning because I thought you might ask this question, and I was, wondering how to answer it. But some of the little hints that started were things like, um, having engaging conversations with youth. So when I was in my 20s and my 30s, it was very easy to engage with young women, young men, um, nobody ever kind of turned away from a conversation with you. They were always willing to listen. And then sometimes somewhere in my 40s, and it happened more, I think, with men rather than women, is that they just didn't seem to engage in the conversations anymore. It was like all of a sudden I was a bit older. Something shifted, and I couldn't really put my hands on it, but it was just there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I started to feel it a bit at work. I remember I sort of like when I turned 50, I was laid off, for a better word to say. And at the time, it was a massive layoff within the company, and it wasn't personalized at all. I understood a lot of the reasons for it, but I'd worked with this company for 20 years. So it was, it was impactful. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, it just looks like they're eliminating a lot of the director roles, like these senior level kind of roles. And I sort of thought about it in terms of, we're the more higher level employees, and
Make
we
more money.
make a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. But then when I look back at it and I started to do it, I went, you know what? 90% of the senior level people that got laid off were women, and we're all just going into the 50 bracket. And again, I tried not to blame it on that, on ageism. But, there were all these little things that just kind of perpetuated themselves. And then what I really started to notice, this is partly of what we're talking about today, is the non-existence of people that look like me in branding and marketing across the board. It's not just cycling. It's not just sport. It's across the board. But that was when I really started to notice that I'm just not seeing my face anymore. It doesn't exist. And it was very much there, of course, when I was in my 20s and my 30s, for the reasons that I guess that's the perceived, beauty or attraction of that age group. But until it started to be me looking out, and I'm going, okay, where am I? I don't see me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I want to circle back to the shoot and how that came about, but along those lines, it is interesting because I think that's a lot of our story, like that we, like when I was young and I did hear women talk about these issues, right? Back then too, I heard older women in my life talking about these issues of invisibility or not seeing themselves represented. And I'm like, and somewhere internally, I think maybe you think, well, that won't happen to me, or, you just sort of like, it just sort of rolls off you. And I think about this a lot, the culture at large, there's this celebration, if you will, of like younger women, because patriarchy gets so overused, but like the system that really has been built, around men, I mean, has sexualized young women as reproductive. It's put all the value there, right? These young reproductive creatures. And then once we're past that age, we're kind of cast aside because of that super narrow role. But what's interesting to me is like there just was a Harvard Business Review study that came out showing that even women in their 30s are dismissed largely because they're patted on the head as being like, oh, aren't you cute, in the office. And they're like, wait. And then they get a little older and they're like, oh, you're not useful. And everyone's like, is there a good age here? Wait,
I know. And, it's interesting you bring that up. And I'm going to read you a quote, because I was this woman who I follow on Instagram, who I just think is the most dynamic person. Both, she's physically gorgeous. She's intellectual. She's smart. I love her posts. She's a really good, I wouldn't say she's an elite athlete, but a high-end recreational athlete. And she sent me a comment. And I mean, I was almost shocked because I thought, wow, I can't believe that she's maybe, I think she says she's 40, but she said, this is awesome. Thank you for sharing. You are amazing. It's a challenge not to feel irrelevant as I age, but this inspires me to let go of those thoughts. And I was thinking, I didn't even know you were there yet. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have thought that she was suffering those thoughts already of where she is in her life.
Well, to your point, a lot of women who you would never imagine get these messages. covertly and overtly. Like we had a feisty menopause performance retreat in Lake Nona last spring, and like amazing women who are so badass, like doing all these things so strong. And
Yeah.
like the one of the women who was a trainer, and literally, Joan, like seriously, one of the most competent, amazing, well-spoken, great at cueing, all the things you would want in a trainer, and also, conventionally very attractive, like all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I know.
she says, and I guess she's in her 40s, I didn't even ask, but she literally had like younger people telling her, well, and older people in her gym saying, well, there's an expiration date and you're no spring chicken. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
oh
Yeah. Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
like she's so valuable, and they're not even paying her. Like she works on commission. She, like, if she doesn't get money if she doesn't have clients. So there's no reason to like be shoving this incredibly competent, amazing woman out the door and
Yeah.
telling her these things. And I'm just like, what is happening?
Hmm.
I sat with me for so, I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was so
Yeah.
so angry about that.
I'm actually, now that I've kind of opened this up, right? It took me a long time to get to the point where I was comfortable talking about it, um, in the way that we're talking about it now. And again, part of it had to do with maybe not wanting to sit. I have no problem saying my age. I'm 65.
I
That's not
understand,
the
but these
issue, but
messages, you've internalized this for a long freaking time, and it is hard.
it is. It's hard, and I'm okay. I was always okay with saying my age amongst my close women friends, but beyond that, I
Yeah.
just, I just never really said it intentionally, um, intentionally. But what was I going to say? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought about being brave.
The messages that you get about being a
Oh,
spring chicken or not.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think I lost it a little bit, but I really think that I'm shocked at how many people have come back to me and said
Mm,
the words they've used is brave. And I
yes.
know that they're saying that because they're suffering it the same way that I was suffering it,
Yes.
because I really needed to get a lot of courage to write that story and to do that photo shoot with,
Well, let's talk about that photo
you
shoot,
know,
because that is brave. Because in the world of filters, and in the world where we can like, oh, you can look at the Zoom and you're like, oh, I don't like how that's looking, I think I'm gonna filter it. And you can, oh my God, photos. I mean, you can make yourself look ageless. Like there's
yes,
not a line on your anything.
no,
That is
yeah,
a very, that required a true level of vulnerability, and yes, I'm going to say bravery, because you have to be so vulnerable to be like, okay, yes, you can take a picture of my aging hands, all the things that we have been told to feel ashamed about. We grew up with porcelana ads where it's like, oh, she's got age spots, use this shit to make not have age spots, like, and like we have been conditioned over and over and over and over and over to be ashamed of aging bodies,
yeah,
especially as women. We don't become
yeah,
silver foxes, like it's a thing. And that shoot was, tell me about how it happened. I mean, that like, let's start there. Like, I don't know, I mean, I know it happened and I know what you wrote and I saw the pictures, but how did it
yeah.
happen?
Well, I have been talking to a few of my younger friends. I'm gifted with many sort of what we would call intergenerational friendships in Girona. Um, and I had been communicating how I felt about ageism and these sort of things. And I had actually done a podcast with a friend who's getting her PhD, and she wanted to talk about that. So that was when I started to sort of start really speaking out loud some of my thoughts. And then Jojo, who's a personal friend of mine, also knew that, what I was feeling. And her mother and I are really good friends as well. And her mother is exactly the same age as I am. And she just sort of said, if you want to do something, I would love to do a photo shoot with you. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And originally I had this vision that we were going to be doing it more outside, more, on a
Like on the
bike.
bike.
We're
Yeah.
going to be, and then she said, I'd really like to do it in the studio. And so then I was kind of gulp, but yeah, okay, let's do it. And I have a lot of confidence. I mean, she's an amazing photographer. So, and so we just did it in her garage, set up as a studio, and we took the photos. And it was one of the very emotional for me, but also very relaxed. I sort of just got into it. This is what I'm doing. Here I am. I can't worry about whether a roll in my stomach is sticking out. I can't worry about, any of these things. I just need to go with the flow. I mean, that's the idea of what I'm doing. The photo shoot was as much for me, my words, because I had to just let it go. I had to let all of it go and just be in the moment with it.
we're both tearing up, folks. So just bear with us. Everybody knows, and I told you, Joan, I cry all the time, so the audience is very used to tears.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's true. It's a place where tears are welcome. Did you know? I kind of missed. I didn't know if JoJo, was she affiliated with Velocio? Was this always intended to be with Velocio
No,
at this? Oh, it wasn't.
no,
Oh,
no. Her and I did it together as just and then obviously, we showed it to Velocio and they were very supportive of it. But
because you're in their clothes. You're an ambassador.
I am a
Yeah.
Velocio ambassador. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And I value that, significantly for a variety of different reasons. But no, it was originally JoJo and I, but we immediately put it out to them
Gotcha.
once we got the shoot done. And, they were very quick to work with us to get the photo shoot out there.
How did it land with you when you saw the post come out?
Well, the first thing that was hard for me was looking at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Because we agreed that there would be no, I mean, I don't think JoJo touches up much anyway. That's kind of her style. But we agreed that there would be no filtering, no touch-ups, no anything. So it was really me. It was exactly how I see myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I could see the lines in my lips. I could see the chest. I mean, everything, and the magic. It's funny you mentioned the hands, because I can live with, I have always been able to live with the way my hands look, because they are absolutely my mother's hands. So
Aww.
when I look at them, I go, oh yay, I'm aging with those. But so looking at the photographs were a little bit difficult, and I realized that once we put the post out, they were going to be public.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, I said to myself, this is why you're doing it, because you need to prove that this is just as beautiful as, it's way more beautiful than a photo shoot that's been done and that you've touched up and brushed up. All right. From my perspective, I felt like that immediately, because that's the message that we're trying to get out there. But, and it's a form of beauty. It's a form of beauty, and it's no different than, the other beautiful things that we look at in our lives.
I love that. And I love everything about the spirit of it. It's interesting because you also shared, you did your own post using that same photo shoot, and you chose some different images that I noticed that the Velocio chose. And this is no way as a criticism of Velocio and their campaign. And I want to make that very clear. They have many photos to pick from, and I've been in those shoots, and I kind of understand what maybe they were going for with some of the choices. The one, I had a very visceral reaction when I saw that, and I saw it before you even reached out to me, because obviously everybody's like sharing it. It made an impact, which is great. But there was one of you on a stool looking, in my eyes, crestfallen. It made you look defeated in my eyes, and it made me feel profoundly sad.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I was reading in your words or believing in, that was emanating from your heart. And
Yeah.
I think that they were trying to, if I had to like get into their heads as somebody who's been part of those shoots, trying to sort of convey what women in this age group are feeling largely, through this image. It didn't work for me personally because I want to see
Yeah.
something else, but I understand why they chose it. And I'm wondering, like, what imagery speaks most to you out of that? Like, did you have a similar reaction to sort of that picture in particular, or
Yes and no. I mean, it was a very emotional shoot.
yeah, that is fair.
Okay, so it really was. I mean,
Yeah.
I cried off and on through the
Mm.
whole thing. And I mean, there are some that are much more than that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
You know,
That's yeah.
yeah, but I do feel that, and it was very important to me that this gets presented in a forward moving, thoughtful way,
Mhm.
right? And positive,
Mhm.
It's very easy to dive into the negative, and I do it, right? It's very easy to kind of, so would I have chosen that photo? Probably not.
Mhm.
But these are the photos, and so
Yeah.
the opportunity is for them to be used how whoever uses them um decides what they're trying to project.
Right, right. No, and
Yeah.
that's very, very fair. And there is sadness. And I think,
Mhm.
hearing you say that softens my look, how I view it a little more, because I'm like, okay, like I I tend to be, as my whole family and everyone who knows me knows, I'm a rose-colored glass full person. Like, so like I do show my raw emotions, and I show, of
Yeah.
course, like sadness, but I do tend to like project as much like just positive energy, and that's just my personality and what
Yeah.
I react to. But I really do respect that. Yeah, I mean, if you were to take some pictures of me, when I, especially now, I'm gonna cry. I mean, but there is something, and I'm just gonna say it, there's something that happens internally, oh boy, when you really see yourself for the first
Yeah.
time, when you have sort of crossed into that place where you do have the lines and the wrinkles, all the stuff that maybe you've been afraid of your whole life or
Yeah.
whatever, and you see it and you're just like, woo, it just sinks into you. And if you were to take a picture of me in that moment, it would not be all this projection I'm talking about. It would be a moment of like sad reflection.
And that was really important, and I think Jojo really wanted to capture that. That
Yeah.
was super important to her, and we did talk about it going to be an
Yeah.
emotional shoot. um and so
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now what? So like this is out in the world.
That's a
What do
great
we do?
question.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things. I mean, I had to take a step back and say, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? Because I've never really done anything like this before. I think I sort of, I referred to that a bit in my opening statements in my posts that, you know, I I want to say suffered a lot of the whole feminism and all the
Mhm.
issues that went with that, in my entire career. And I was never an activist. I was never an advocate, or, I just fought my own battles. And so I decided that this one, I was just tired of sitting on the fence and listening and putting up with a lot of the stuff. So I took a step back this week and I thought, okay, what am I really trying to accomplish here? And my first goal, which is the same as um, what it was when I did the shoot, was just to bring to the forefront the fact that um, we need to be much more diversified and inclusive in the way that we market to the entire market, not just to specifics. And I think the thing that I find most insulting about the way that the marketing is done, especially, and don't get me wrong, youth is incredibly important and inspiring and very much an integral part of what we should be, what we should be looking at. But we need to add in the rest of the players. And, we're not where we need to be in terms of color and race and gender. I mean, that's just getting jump started in the last couple of years from my perspective. I don't think it really was in the forefront. Size. But we need to add ageism in. And I think the interesting thing about ageism is that it's going to affect all of us at some point, but we don't look it and see it in the face until we're actually confronting it. So my goal is to get that out there and to get more brands engaged with us as a community, and to see that we're not inspired by looking at people that are 30 years younger than us. I mean, that's not inspirational to us. What we want to see is people more our age also. We're inspired by all of it, to be honest. I mean, I am inspired by the young women and men and that I see in these ads. I mean, I love it, but I want to see more of me in those ads as well. So
Well, and
that's
if I
number one.
may, oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
No,
you
no,
had
you
number one.
go. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If I may, that is also truly reflective of the cycling and a lot of the sports population. Like, if you go to an event, you don't actually see a whole lot of younger women, especially. Like, you see a lot of women who are 40 plus, are in
Yes.
there, like they can afford the bikes, they've been here,
Yep.
and the Title IX generation is all like we're here. Like, there's a wave of women who are, I mean, and we have to just throw out this notion of what it even means to be a 50 plus athlete, because we're seeing it all the time. The women winning
Yeah.
race across America outright, even among the men, are in their 50s. They're winning the whole
Exactly.
damn thing. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just like we need to sort of like toss it all out, because it's just we're a whole other generation and species now of people who've been active from the time they were young, and they're going to be active until they go into the ground or whatever. It's just the way
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and it is just
No,
like, I
so
think, just normalizing it, because it is normal.
yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it, is normalizing it. And I mean, that needs to be done across the board with all of the different components of what we're trying to deal with when it comes to
Yeah.
diversity and inclusivity. Um, and then I think the second thing is, I just want to see women happy on bikes, and I want to see them and I'm talking like, women maybe that have never ridden before. They've kind of ridden, and all of a sudden they're getting the bug, which a lot of them are, and seeing that they're happy on bikes. And that means a lot of different things. And if you don't mind, can I share another little message I got from someone?
Absolutely. That's
Because
why you're here.
this was so
Take the
poignant.
microphone.
I was so I cried when I read this
Oh.
one. So this was from a Spanish friend who asked me to translate my article for me, because she wasn't sure my post, because she wasn't sure whether she fully got it. So I did, and then she sent me back this message, and she said, "I love this message. I will be 52 next October, and on my 50th birthday, I got a gravel bike. I've never been a sportive woman. I still think I am not. What I have always been is active and a dreams catcher. The bicycle that I got when I was 50, it was third hand, not super easy to ride, and it made me the broom at all the rides I joined, which I just thought was super sweet." Well, nothing lost in translation on that one.
Love it.
But she said, "I was so happy to be part of the community where I can stop listening about how old my society tells me all the time that I am. Now, on my 52nd birthday, I got a new bike, and she's got this beautiful e-bike, gravel bike. It's just
nice.
superb. And Velocio bib. She has Velocio clothing and all sorts of other comfortable stuff that now allows me to keep in the middle of the peloton. So it's brought her that image of feeling like she's the sweeper, the broom at the end of what's that? What do they call it? The broom?
The broom wagon is the thing that
Yeah, the
sweeps
broom
you up.
wagon, from that expression of the broom wagon. And she says, now I feel like I'm in the middle of the peloton. And it's that combination of her bike, her clothing, her accessories. It's all of those things together that have made her feel like she can not only belong, but be comfortable in that. And I think that is a message that I want the brands to hear, but that's what I want women to feel when they're on their bikes.
I 100% agree. And
Yeah.
we are here to help you in any way we can, getting out this message and supporting whatever endeavors, that you see forwarding this mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the other thing, just to add on a couple of things, I would like to see, I've had really good experience with a couple of events this year that I thought were incredibly inclusive and focus on the community of cycling rather than just racing. So my focus on recreational athletes, because that's who I am. And I think they're a large part of the market. And so identifying places where women can feel comfortable going and feeling like they're going to be well supported and not feel like they're going to be, left behind. And then the next thing for me, of course, is to see, how to get out to the brands. And that's my next challenge, is meeting with the right people that can put me in front of the brands that I'd like to start discussions with. I mean, I'd like to cross all the brands. I have a list of 30 right now that I've made that I think are impactful, in the market, that have a good portion of the market. And so I'd like to see that. And that's clothing, that's bikes, it's helmets, it's socks, it's whatever. But start getting in front of those people, which is a little bit is my challenge right now. That's my next step of figuring out how to get there.
Well, anyone that's listening can drop me a line.
Yes.
At
Thank
play
you.
not pause at livefeisty.com, and I will pass those messages along. And you can follow. I'll put Joan's Instagram in the notes, and you can drop her too. You can direct message her, because this is I mean, I believe that this is the start of something that is only going to grow. I really do. I mean, I believe that in my heart.
Yeah. I feel that more now, this week than I did when I first wrote what I wrote. Then it was really about just getting my words out there. And now I kind of realize that, there's a lot to be done. And I think, we all have ways that we can contribute to get it out there.
And it's exciting. I mean, take it from someone who started the menopause podcast
I know.
2.5 years ago.
I know.
It's exciting.
I know.
Like, good things happen.
It's really cool. I was going through yours, I was starting at the very beginning with some of your initial podcasts, and I'm super proud of you.
Oh,
yeah.
That means a lot. That means a lot. And
Yeah.
I believe in lifting as we climb and supporting each other. It's
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So is there anything, Joan, that we haven't, addressed, or other messages that you wanted to make sure that this audience heard that we haven't talked about yet in this conversation?
No, I think you've done a good job of covering off everything. And then, no, I think we've summarized it well in the last 120 seconds, last 2 minutes. Yeah.
Do you feel like the women, well, let me ask you this. Do you have contemporaries you ride with, who are of the same age?
Yes, I have this amazing group of women. Well, I have had these amazing group of women that have been my contemporaries since I started cycling. I've always been the same age. I've grown with them. The group that I rode with here in Vancouver was always 50 plus. But Girona, I have this magical group of 140 women called the Girona Gravel Girls. And on average, we have 20 to 30 women that show up for every ride. And I would say that it's pretty much, it's all across all ages. It's across all ages. And it's really how riding groups should look from my perspective. But very supportive. And there's a lot of women that are maybe a bit younger, but 40 plus in the group. So yeah.
All right. So we're here. You have support all around you. And
thank you.
Let's all keep this movement going forward, because as you mentioned, like, it's sort of like menopause, like everybody like reaches these chapters, and we just want to make it better for the, just keep kicking down walls for those coming behind us.
Exactly. And it's our job to do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with my coach, Marnie Sumbal. We had a great conversation about how she trained me back up for an Ironman 70.3 after, a 15-year hiatus from triathlon. She's so thoughtful and insightful and well-spoken. You won't want to miss this one. So come on back. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.